I mean, why is this not gonna work? Girl, not you. You fine.
The one and only. So what you looking for? Stay strapped.
I see you, Gumbo. Gumbo Wumbo.
Hey, keep your eyes open. What can I get you? Yeah, I wasn't that close with Franklin when we was coming up, but I knew him a little. Always had respect for the dude. I mean, man, we went our separate ways for real, and now here we are. Stay strapped.
Move.
Eyes on main entrance.
You coolie?
I'm mad tight, yo. I caught Randall with some gutter ass hoe. I'ma cook this bitch.
Yeah. Look at my girl. God, I gotta get up. I don't feel like it. Bro, that ass is fat though. I'm not gonna lie. It really is. Girl, that ass really is fat.
Got a bit of a problem. Some asshole got wind of what we were up to, apparently killing a guy's closest...
Transporter, officer, you're the ground team. To start with, you'll collect our bus from the junkyard at Sandy Shores. Demolitions, you're the perimeter team. You'll be hijacking the inbound Bolingbroke transport. The pilot's going to LSIA. And me, I'm gonna put up some smoke in a nice crowded public place.
Yo, what that just
bus? All right. Take it to Bolingbroke and avoid attention. You're coming up on Bolingbroke. Hold it together and they'll let you in. You've got clearance.
Just one, huh? Thought the drug laws were keeping us small. Come on.
Okay, get to it. As long as they think you're an inmate and a guard, they shouldn't raise the alarm. I said shouldn't. So much for that. The facility's on alert. You move for Rishkovsky. Go west along the walkway, taking a left at the fork. You'll turn right at the next fork and see some stairs in front of you. I'm gonna give you instructions. Try and get you to the target, taking you around the worst of the security.
Members of the military be able to arrest people inside the United States. So parents should not expect to know what causes autism based on children. Well, same. Mr. President, did you ask President Putin to meet with you about Ukraine? So what did the president have to say about Elon Musk during the meeting? Was he frustrated with him? The estimates that say that this bill, if passed, would add trillions of dollars to the federal deficit.
Explore Africa with CNN, where 54 nations create the fabric of this rich continent. This is really complex. Discover business,
Economic trends.
really you're seeing something here. Nature and culture, and the stories shaping Africa today.
Spoke its markets around the world. The energy is amazing. It feels so good to be here.
Despite all the AI hype, talk of a brave new world, the future is now. Seems corporate investment in AI is yet to pay off. One survey finding no ROI or return on investment, with 95% of companies.
Hey, that's a bomb voiture you got. What car you got there?
Totally ditched this guy I just met.
Yo, over here.
Move on. I moved on.
Luigi, what's up, buddy? How you been? Listen, you still speak Spanish, right?
Companies. Tech CEO Sam Altman believes we're in an AI bubble. The head of OpenAI told reporters he believes investors are overly positive about AI development, saying, quote, when bubbles happen, smart people get overexcited about a kernel of truth. Are we in a phase where investors as a whole are overexcited about AI? The answer, yes. Well, now from CNN's Clay Duffy.
I mean, really stark results from this study, especially because we keep hearing, including from leaders of this industry, how every enterprise needs to have an AI strategy, needs to be adopting this technology. And yet, according to this study, only 5% of the companies that have rolled out AI pilot programs are actually seeing meaningful increases to their revenue. And certainly, I do think that Sam Altman might have a point, given that we've seen so many AI startups raking in these huge valuations, often with only 2 or 3 people, a handful of people running the companies. Before they even make a profit, they are raking in these huge valuations. It's likely that not all of those will succeed. But I also think it's worth noting in terms of this enterprise adoption, this study finds that often the problem is not the quality of the AI model, but rather that companies don't yet really understand how to implement this new technology, how to update their processes to really make the most of AI. This is sort of a reality check moment where we've heard a lot from Silicon Valley about how AI is growing exponentially, advancing exponentially. And yet, I think what you're starting to see from this study and from what companies are saying about their use of these systems is that this adoption and the development of AI is not actually going to be that linear. Something that I long have just personally thought watching this space is that we're going to see a lot of companies looking to outsource some of their work to AI.
This won't destroy us. Amid some of the largest protests Israel has seen since the beginning of the war, families of the hostages are calling the planned operation a deception and unforgivable moral and security neglect. A recent study of reserve soldiers suggested approximately 40% were slightly or significantly less motivated to serve. The military's top general warned the security cabinet of the verdict of manpower, an exhausted army in a war that won't end. Israel's military relies on reservists to chief of staff.
Yes, I believe that some of them will say, oh, when something is coming to an end, you feel it, and it comes to an end.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised the intense fighting would be over by now.
Once we begin the Rafah operation, the intense phase of the fighting is weeks away from completion. Not months, weeks away from completion.
That was February 2024. 18 months later, Netanyahu says a new operation is the fastest way to end what has long since become Israel's longest war. The military says the new operation to take over and occupy Gaza City in total, 20,000 of whom they say will have their time in the reserves extended as part of this operation. And that's in addition to the active duty troops required for this new fight. And there you see the burden on the military after 2 years of war. Oren Lieberman, CNN in Jerusalem.
Britain and the EU have been quick to condemn Israel's announcement of the construction of a new settlement in the West Bank.
The West Bank.
The prospect of a viable Palestinian state. Also, thousands of housing units in an area called E1 in East Jerusalem. Critics say it would cut the West Bank in half, making a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital virtually impossible. Well, Israeli Minister Bezalel Smotrich confirms that that's exactly what the plan is meant to be, saying the Palestinian state is being erased from the table. Joining me now from Sydney, Australia, General Anthony Lowenstein is the author of the Genocide Laboratory, How Israel Exports Technology and Occupation Around the World. Anthony, thanks for being with us. A week ago, when Sotrich announced the go-ahead for E1, it was pretty straightforward, did not hide the truth, and that is that this is a plan to divide the West Bank and make a future Palestinian state does not work. Now he wants the Israeli Prime Minister to have the West Bank period.
On this important day, I call from here on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The time has come to fully apply Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, to forever remove from the table the idea of dividing the land, and to make sure that by September, Europe's hypocrite leaders will simply have nothing to recognize.
The Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, who's the father of the settlement, said once, talk less, do more. Obviously, talk less is no longer a principle there, because Israel seems no longer concerned about what the world thinks, no longer concerned about upholding previous agreements entered into by past governments, like the Oslo Accords.
How do I say what they do care about is their international reputation. Now, it might not seem that way, but if you look at public opinion polls in the US, Europe, the UK, Australia, what you find is, particularly in the last 6 months, is the recent Pew poll, that a majority of citizens, the public, fundamentally oppose what Israel is doing in the West Bank, and certainly in Gaza. They oppose Netanyahu. So there is a minority. Evangelicals, very hardline, far-right Jews, and I'm Jewish myself, but I don't subscribe to those views, who do support Netanyahu, who do support what Israel is doing. But Israel has always craved legitimacy, and they can occupy all the West Bank and destroy Gaza, but ultimately they don't get that legitimacy. They crave that, because this year Israel is spending $150 million US more to try to do better PR, essentially. Not to change the policies on the ground, but to actually try to change public perception. And frankly, it's not working.
Yeah, I wonder about that. The craving for international legitimacy. A country that was born of the UN, highly critical of the UN. It does seem to have changed to some degree, especially with this far right element within Netanyahu's coalition. They don't seem to be as sort of concerned about it as much as it has been in the past.
That's true to an extent. I mean, at the moment, Netanyahu feels like he has the wind in his sails. Trump is on board. I mean, the American ambassador just this week to Israel, Mike Huckabee, said essentially that Israel can do what it wants in the West Bank. But ultimately, look, the West Bank has been annexed unofficially for years. I spent my time over there. I used to be based in Jerusalem. Anyone who spends 5 minutes across the West Bank, let alone Gaza, will tell you that
the West Bank.
violence aided by Israeli soldiers has been causing chaos across the West Bank for years. Palestinians cannot build their own homes, they can't expand their own homes. So ultimately, when the US and other countries talk about some kind of shift in public opinion, what in fact they're recognising, I would argue, and this is the case long before Trump, with Biden and others, that the reality on the ground speaks for itself. You mentioned before Ariel Sharon. Sharon was well aware that facts on the ground are what matter. So when Smotrich now is backing Netanyahu, it's important to say that, just finally on this point, this is not simply an extremist far-right Israeli government.
Cool.
By a sizable proportion of the Israeli Jewish population. That's the sad reality. So if and when Netanyahu falls as leader, which he will eventually, the likely successors on these issues are no different. This is what people need to understand. It's not just about Netanyahu and his coalition.
That I am not
bystander
doing favor. It's not an offer of appointment so much as an opportunity.
Breach of international law.
That's just
Really
technical, but the
undermines
point is,
the
sometimes our fair and legal justice system makes mistakes.
My experience is with
This is one such time.
Here he is.
Professor Maxim
And even recognizing a Palestinian state in the UN General Assembly is sort of a solid gesture, which is ultimately pointless.
doctorates,
What real
overconfident polymath,
global public opinion? But what can individual governments do? What action can they take that will have an impact on Israel's governments?
weapons development, engineer,
Or
car nut,
what?
but
As you say, the
definitely not
UK,
a
France, Australia, Canada are pledged to recognise a Palestinian state next month, which is frankly token at best. All these countries, most of Europe, much of the Arab world, since October 7 and Israel's genocide in Gaza, none of them have stopped trading with Israel. Many of these countries are still sending weapons parts through the US and looking at the F-35 fighter jet that Israel is using over Gaza. They're the same choice that European states and others are making to continue that trade. In fact, many of these states are trying to increase trade. The recent work around the Palestine laboratory around the arms and surveillance industries, and the recent 2024 figures found very clearly that Europe last year was the biggest purchaser of Israeli weapons, the biggest purchaser. So all the rhetoric about they're deeply concerned about the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian state and apartheid in the West Bank, words are cheap. Economic pressure can make a difference. And I think a lot of European states and Arab states need to recognise that rather than continuing this phase of rhetoric. But actions on the ground speak for themselves.
It is a choice. It's a very good point to make.
That's a two-person job.
Thanks so much for having me.
The other two-handers are guys prized.
We
believe it's about to be shipped to Korea by luxury car theft.
Trump administration officials have said plans for a face-to-face meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky are underway. Russia's foreign minister, though, is again indicating that Putin has not agreed to a meeting. Behind NATO military leaders met on Wednesday to discuss potential security guarantees for Ukraine once the war is over. But Russia says discussing Ukraine's security without Moscow's participation is a path to nowhere. Here's CNN's close selection with more.
Well, it was already clear by the time the dust had settled on those White House talks on Monday that Russia had not, as the White House seemed to suggest, committed to a bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky as the next step. On Wednesday, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, made that even clearer.
Following the phone conversation with President Trump the day before yesterday, our president made a proposal not only to continue these conversations, but also to think about raising the levels of the heads of delegation.
Well, high-level officials perhaps, but no mention of heads of state. I remember the Trump team came out of those Alaska talks last Friday.
Like, I'm not flying, so figure it out, kid.
Well, Inside Africa on CNN in association with Zenith Bank.
Style or substance. Somehow, you need one or the other. But there is another choice. Not stopping until you have everything in the GMC Sierra. Bill Gates University APR select Sierra 1500 models. That's over 4,300 in average finance savings. See your local GMC dealer.
Through HIMSS, hundreds of thousands of guys are finding doctor-trusted treatment for their ED. In fact, we'll show you one. This is him. I'm him. Today, he really feels like him.
I'm him.
But he didn't always.
Am I even him?
So he went to HIMSS.com and got ED treatment prescribed 100% online and delivered right to his door. Now, every day, he feels like him.
I'm him.
Find trusted treatment for ED and start feeling like him. Get started today at HIMSS.com. I'm Rafael Romo in Atlanta. This is CNN.
Childhood denied. The trauma of growing up. Go to heaven. Because at least they say there is food there. For Gaza's children, there is only death, misery, and hunger. There is no joy, there is no love.
Saudi is proposed to resolve security issues, collective security without the Russian Federation. This will not work.
Now the Kremlin wants a veto over security guarantees for Ukraine. What appears to be yet another attempt to slow walk the peace deal.
This is sort of a reality check moment where we've heard a lot from Silicon Valley about how AI is growing exponentially.
Warnings to investors of an AI bubble, which could be exponentially worse than the dot-com crash 25 years ago.
Live from Atlanta, this is CNN Newsroom with John Boyce.
Two glaring examples Wednesday of just how little impact international criticism has on the actions of the Israeli government. Controversial plans for an Israeli settlement in the West Bank, which have been on hold for more than 20 years, have now been approved. The E1 settlement sparked global anger when it was first announced because it would divide the West Bank, making a Palestinian state just not viable. On Wednesday, the Israeli government said that was the point. At the same time, operations by the Israeli military began to occupy Gaza City. Explosions in the night sky showed the first stage of a major offensive, which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says will drive Hamas from one of its last strongholds. Israeli forces are said to be on the outskirts of the city, and despite a shortage of troops, Netanyahu has ordered the military to shorten the expected 5-month-long timeline. An additional 60,000 Israeli reservists are being called up, and service of another 20,000 is being extended.
We will deepen the attack on Hamas in Gaza City, a stronghold of governmental and military terror for the terrorist organization. We will intensify the strikes on the terror infrastructure above and below ground and sever the population's dependence on Hamas.
For Palestinians living in what was Gaza's biggest city, this military offensive means packing up whatever they can carry and leaving again. UN says more than 86% of Gaza is already under displacement orders or falls within Israeli militarized zones.
We can't answer the door right now, but if you'd like to leave a message, you can do it now.
This guy's following me, Lacey. Who is he? No, they're not following me since. They are.
What up?
He's been following me since I told you. They are. Just come on. Call the police. He's in the car? No, he's been following me since 60 seconds. Call the police. I tried to say, God, you kept posting the shit back and forth. I didn't get it wrong. But I didn't use it like that. So. Hi, I want 6214 Calmaya. Oh, this road.
Maintaining the integrity of the plane is the priority here. Don't rush this.
You know what I think?
Looks like a shit show down there. Clear the airstrip before you think about taking that bird into the sky. If your plane gets shot up, we're back to Alpha.
We can't answer the door right now, but if you'd like to leave a message, you can do it now.
This guy's following me, Lacey. Please. Look at us. What up? You guys follow me. What up? I'm telling you. Call the police.
One was pretty short of food in Gaza. Aid groups say Palestinians are facing a life-threatening lack of shelter. For nearly 6 months, delivery of shelter materials into Gaza has been blocked by Israel, with planes tenfold can be used in a military purpose. And even after promising last week to allow more tents, aid groups say bureaucratic hurdles are blocking delivery. A Palestinian woman displaced from Rafah says she's been living in the same tent since the war began almost 2 years ago.
My tent is extremely worn. Tents are torn. My tent is made of torn blankets. My tent is small, and it's not enough for my children and me. I need a replacement tent. We honestly need new tents.
If you can't send us back to our homes, just provide us with something in which we can sleep, eat, drink, a life where we can live, proper tents like human beings.
The number of children suffering from malnutrition has tripled in Gaza in less than 6 months, according to the UN. Like the children there have become absolutely miserable. For the last 2 years, tens of thousands of Gaza's youngest have endured trauma from bombings, strikes, drones, lack of food, losing their parents or families. The UN says practically all of Gaza's 1.1 million children need mental health support. They've been out of school for nearly 2 years. All children younger than 5 are at risk of acute malnutrition following Israel's 11-week blockade of food and aid earlier this year. Nearly 1 in every 3 children in Gaza is now malnourished. That's Gaza City. And the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says, quote, "This is not a natural disaster. It's a man-made preventable starvation." The World Food Programme says food is spoiling as it sits in trucks waiting for months for Israeli authorities to allow it into Gaza. Joe English is an emergency communications specialist with the UN's Children Fund, UNICEF. He joins us this hour from New York. Thank you for being with us. According to the UN, more than 50,000 children have been reported dead or injured since October 2023. Thousands of kids have had one or more limbs amputated, the highest number per capita anywhere in the world. Doctors Without Borders describes Gaza as the most dangerous place on earth for children. Children are always the first victims of famine, which is happening right now, and that's what can be quantified. But a series of photographs from the European Press Photo Agency, which were quite emotional, including this one, a little boy holding the casing of a spent Israeli shell, clinging to it almost, as you know. It seems to illustrate how childhood is actually being taken away now from an entire generation in Gaza.
It is. You know, I think any of us see these kind of images, and the images we've seen over the last few weeks of children emaciated, wasting away in their parents' arms. You know, and it can't do anything but hopefully drive us to action. What we've seen all too often is we've seen these images, we've been out, we've said what we're seeing on the ground as UNICEF and humanitarian organisations in the hope that it will make a difference and we will see increased amounts of aid getting in. But the reality is that that is not the case. The situation is worse than it has ever been. And now what do we see? You know, not talk of an increase in aid getting in, but an escalation in the fighting. You know, children, far too many already have paid the ultimate price, and more children will die unless we see an end to the fighting.
Yeah, and that fighting has resulted in hospitals being targeted and destroyed, schools also targeted by Israel. According to the UN, again, some 95% of schools have been damaged in the fighting, leaving most children without education for nearly 2 years. Many schools have been turned into displacement camps, so either they've been destroyed without their housing moving or have been displaced. So, children in a place like Gaza, how crucial, how important is it for them to get that opportunity just to attend school? What does it mean beyond an education? What does it mean in terms of hope and dignity?
It's absolutely huge. In conflict, schools can provide a safe haven for children, somewhere to escape the chaos around them. And in many conflicts around the world, UNICEF is able to continue supporting children to go to school, to get some kind of education.
What you doing?
Whilst the fighting continues, but that's just not the case in Gaza. As you say, almost 2 years now, children have been out of school, and that comes on top of the disruptions that we saw from the pandemic. Now any parent will recognise that feeling when you're all worried about our children necessarily applying for what impact that would have on their future. Now imagine being a parent in Gaza and seeing that hope extinguished from your children's eyes. And we have to remember that these children are the generation who will have to rebuild Gaza. So what hope are we giving them if we can't provide them with that basic right for every child of an education?
It'll be, staggering to see what their view on the world will be like when they reach that point where they are the next generation of leaders in Gaza, what they will be, their feelings towards Israel and the rest of the world, given what has happened over the last 10 years. This is what the
because at least they say there is food there. Your video calls with our own humanitarians were standing before our eyes. And it is not just a humanitarian crisis, it's a moral crisis that challenges the global conscience. We will continue to speak out at every opportunity, but words don't feed hungry children.
It's a good point. And given that Hamas has controlled Gaza for 18 years, the ones who are least to blame for the war are the ones who are paying the highest price. And there's an apathy around the world that they will.
That seems to be, I think, how we see the photos and the images and the stories and the words you hear from children, mothers, and parents. Many months ago I was speaking to parents and they were exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally, from the day-to-day struggle of keeping their children alive, putting their child to bed each night, not knowing if they would wake up in the morning, and now not knowing if they have enough food to give them. But it's not even children who are the youngest children now. What we're seeing is that pregnant women, new mothers, acutely malnourished, which means that 1 in 5 children born in Gaza now is now either being born early or underweight. And so it is even unborn children who are paying the price for this war. So we have to see an end to the fighting. We have to see the hostages released. We have to see the hope for the future for this generation of children. Otherwise, what is the point of the international order if we cannot finally say enough is enough and bring this horrific conflict to an end?
Anything else for a bunch of kids who have nothing to do with it? Joe, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, John.
Well, it seems that historic face-to-face meeting between the Russian and Ukrainian presidents might not happen, at least not as quickly as the White House anticipated. The Kremlin is downplaying the chances of the summit taking place, with Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, indicating that President Putin hasn't actually agreed to the meeting. Meantime, NATO military leaders met Wednesday to discuss potential security guarantees for Ukraine once the war is over. Lavrov says those discussions are meaningless without Moscow's involvement.
It's proposed to resolve security issues, collective security without the Russian Federation. This will not work. I'm confident that in the West, and above all in the US, they understand perfectly well that seriously discussing security issues without the Russian Federation is a utopia and a path to nowhere.
More details now from CNN's Ben Weidman reporting in.
The prospect of an imminent Zelensky-Putin meeting seems to be fading, with a senior Russian official throwing cold water on White House claims Putin had agreed to one. Wednesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov didn't explicitly reject the idea, only saying Russia is ready to raise the level of delegations. Kremlin speak for perhaps there will be a slightly more senior level of official participation in future negotiations. but certainly not involving the Russian president. President Zelensky has made it clear he's ready to direct conflict has long called into question the legitimacy not only of Zelensky as president, but also Ukraine as a sovereign state. Putin was more than happy to stroll down the red carpet with the likes of President Donald Trump, but not the head of the state he has created. So on Wednesday, European leaders left Washington seemingly satisfied with the consensus they had reached with American officials.
What are y'all doing?
The outlines of post-peace agreement security guarantees. Lavrov made it clear there's no point in discussing
Cut it out.
guarantees without direct Russian involvement. European leaders have aggressively trying to change the position of President Trump after his friendly summit with Putin in Alaska. All the while, the war goes on. Wednesday, the commander of the Ukrainian army toured the Eastern Front, reporting back that his troops remain on the defensive as Russia pushes ahead with its summer offensive. I'm Ben Wiedemann, CNN, reporting from Eastern Ukraine.
The U.S. East Coast is already feeling the effects of Hurricane Erin as it moves north through the Atlantic Ocean. NASA has released these 3D models of the storm as it went through rapid intensification. The storm Category 2 storm is not expected to make landfall in the U.S. Storm surge, high winds, and heavy rain have impacted coastal areas in the south. Erin is forecast to turn into the open ocean over the next few days as it picks up speed. CNN's Diane Gallagher has the very latest now, reporting in from North Carolina.
As Hurricane Erin comes up the East Coast, passing the Outer Banks, you can see right now the sort of choppy seas. We're looking at some spicy surge and a little bit aggressive. There's still people who are trying to walk just along the shoreline, admiring these waves. We're Jeanette here in Nag's Head. That's about 25 feet above the mean water. We are seeing some of the waves at this point kind of kiss the bottom of it occasionally, but so far, again, just rough surf. The big concern for the Outer Banks is looking at this potential of up to 4 feet of storm surge and also those big waves. Now, some of it comes from just the geographic vulnerabilities of the Outer Banks. We're looking at about 200 miles of barrier islands that are effectively connected by this one highway. It's called NC-12, and that is the biggest concern of officials at this point. They are worried about the storm surge potentially washing out or just breaking some of NC-12, which will leave people in some of the more southern Outer Banks islands stranded for a period of time until they can repair that. And they're not sure exactly how long that might take. They've already shut down roughly 50 miles of NC-12 at this point, saying the conditions are just a little bit too rough right now. We have seen some DOT cameras that show overwash at this point, the tide when it came in, spilling over those dunes. We have video from earlier in the day on Wednesday of the Department of Transportation using construction vehicles to try and fortify those dunes to prevent any of that isolation. Now, there were mandatory evacuations for Overcook and Hatteras Island. According to the DOT, more than 2,200 people were evacuated safely through the ferry system. At this point, though, as the hurricane passes these Outer Banks, people just are going to have to stay where they are. The big key in the morning, when it is supposed to be the worst here, is that people do not get into the ocean because of those very dangerous rip currents. They're worried again about potential for property damage, but they do not want to have to also account for loss of life. In Nag's Head, Diane Gallagher, CNN. Back to you.
Torrential rain has triggered flooding in parts of western India, with evacuations ordered in at least 2 cities on Wednesday. You see residents there walking through floodwaters, which submerged some buildings as well as temples. Still to come on CNN, the dangerous reality of life in Afghanistan 4 years after the US cut and run.
Every week, the D-miners collect unexploded ordnance and explode them. But invading countries have left more than just bombs in their wake here.
By many Afghans who worked for the United States during its 20-year-long war now feel abandoned. Also ahead, boos for the Vice President and other key members of the Trump administration. We'll explain why in a moment.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, and winner for Outstanding Reported News Program 2 years in a row. This week, Nick White dives into the high-stakes world of sports betting for a look at the real costs. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper on CNN.
I'm Valeria Leon in Mexico City, and this is...
These men will know every soldier under their command. No disguise will fool them.
I'm from Chongqing. It's quite different because we don't have a lot of seafood, so we use a lot of spice. I learned the traditional French cuisine in Australia. One dish we have is mushroom. The sauce is very traditional, a little bit sour French truffle sauce, and the truffle with the Chinese mushroom, so they can enhance the flavor more. It's a lot of fun to work here.
So this is very important role in the political system.
I wouldn't be 100% in love with nature.
Yes.
Don't give up. Let's do it. We can make it. For the people.
So.
We cover it all, from legal battles. With one juror of Netflix years, things that weighs on the president and conversations in between them. Weighs from Washington, weighing with the president. Will you take this all the way to the Supreme Court?
I'm not refuting or still full of what you said.
What do you say to people who are looking to find their voice?
Laura Coates Live, tonight on CNN. Today, we live in an unpredictable environment, and news races around the world at breakneck speed. Demi Moore,
Kate Winslet, Chancellor Merkel, welcome to the program. I think that societies that suppress their women are the least successful economically.
my show brings you the latest news and top news makers. Do you feel the Trump administration understands what's at stake? I'll be honest, we have to work on it.
What do you want people to know about mortality?
And we also dive below the headline.
These people have been the most emotional scene. Pacific.
What do you want the impact of this particular film to be?
It's corny to say, but it's about love. It's anything worth dying for or anything worth living for.
It's crucial we make sense of what's happening and fully understand what's at stake.
Does Europe have enough forces to control 1,300 kilometers of a line of contact against Russia?
Plan 4, weekdays on CNN.
In a divided America, where do I fit? You tell me. Ask your partner. Abby Phillip brings all sides to the table.
It is false. The answer is zero.
The policy.
What is the Democratic Party about? Can you answer that question?
And the biggest debates to wrap up your day.
I hear what you're saying Trump believes in, but do you think it's a good idea?
News Night with Abby Phillip, tonight on CNN.
Four years ago, when US forces suddenly withdrew in chaos from Afghanistan, thousands of Afghan nationals who worked with the United States were left behind. They were abandoned, left behind to face the Islamic fundamentalist rule of the Taliban. Now it's even worse. The Trump administration has a travel ban. And CNN's Isabel Young reports there are fewer opportunities to leave and lives are still being lost in bombarded battlefields. Here she is.
Here in Afghanistan, the remnants of war are everywhere. These guys are trying to clear this whole field of landmines that have been left by decades of war. Just got to watch where we're stepping, because anywhere beyond these red flags is still potentially contaminated and could have unexploded ordnance. D-miners work around the clock.
There were 3 accidents, civilian accidents that happened in the post.
Oh, wow. And how often are civilian accidents happening in Afghanistan?
In many cases, we have witnessed more than 110 people. Most of them as children involved with the accident, unfortunately.
So over 100 civilian accidents every month?
Monthly basis, yes.
Wow. It must be dangerous work.
Yes. This is the reality of Afghanistan.
This guy's here just found some sign of metal, so they're digging a little further to try and find out whether that's a mine or not. Very hot, dangerous work up here. Every week, the D-miners collect unexploded ordnance and explode them.
3, 2, 1.
But invading countries have left more than just bombs in their wake here. Hundreds of thousands of Afghans worked with the US government during their 20-year war here, as translators, drivers, civil society workers, and doctors. Following America's chaotic withdrawal under the Biden administration in 2021, the US set up a refugee program that would provide a path for Afghans to move to the US, a lightning rod for many Republicans.
The United States of America never, ever made a promise, written or unwritten, to the people of Afghanistan that if after 20 years they were unable to secure their own country, that we would take them to ours.
When Trump returned to power this year, he cancelled refugee programs, dismantled the office dedicated to helping Afghans relocate, and barred them from entering the US altogether. We've been speaking to a lot of those individuals across the country, but sadly because of security concerns, most of them we're having to speak to on the phone. On paper, the US says they are still processing cases for people who worked with the US military directly. But many, like this man, are stuck in Afghanistan, living in fear. We've disguised his voice.
I know that everybody is searching for me. I'm fighting. If I come here outside free, help me and come to the president. And harm me. He will go me. Without help, become innocent. Inside, it's in the order. All forces is out. We strove with these forces side by side for a long time, but now beyond us life. Where is the justice?
So we've been in touch with one woman who has agreed to meet with us. She said that it's very risky, that she risks running into the Taliban, she risks traveling by herself, and she's very scared. But she says it's worth it because she really needs to share her story. As a doctor, this woman worked for American charities. With recent US aid cuts, she lost her job. She now feels that her relationship with US organizations has put her and her family's life in danger. You're clearly terrified. You came here, you were shaking.
Yeah, during that week, I saw many Taliban, and I'm very afraid from them.
What is it like as a woman living in Afghanistan right now?
The situation is very bad for the Afghan women. I don't have any job. We go to the bazaar, not going to the shopping. We can't. Just you in the room and you are asking from every single object that you are spending is really dangerous.
Her communication with the State Department has stopped. The last email she got was in January, just days before Trump returned to the White House. How did you feel when you saw the news that Trump was cancelling these programs?
All the night we are crying. It was very difficult to accept like this.
You felt like this was your lifeline?
Yes, it was rough our head.
President Trump has said that he needs to protect the borders, that he needs this America First policy to ensure that it's not dangerous, that no one dangerous enters the US.
No, I'm not agree with this. They broke his promise after 20 years, and they promised us to we must be moved from here to America.
What is your message to President Trump?
Please start the cases again, and also please support the Afghani girls or women, because now it was very Typical for us, it was very dangerous, and I'm not feeling safe in here.
The US State Department told us they're unable to comment on individual cases or internal operations of refugee processing, and that the president is, quote, committed to helping those who helped us, but that their first priority is always the safety and security of the American people. Isabel Young, CNN, Afghanistan.
Just ahead on CNN is AI fueling a frenzy in speculative investment. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman warns we're actually in an AI bubble right now.
It is a busy news day all around the world.
This is One World.
The world's top headlines with some of the world's biggest players.
Stories that captivate from two unique perspectives. Zain Asher and Biana Golodriga use their extensive experience to cover global news with passion and intellect.
Talk us through what specifically Secretary of State Marco Rubio was talking about. What leverage, if any, does Prime Minister Netanyahu have at this point?
One World with Zain Asher and Biana Golodriga. Weekdays on CNN.
I'm Becky Anderson at the Rafah border crossing, and this is CNN.
The 5 Things Podcast from CNN. Get the day's top 5 stories, all in one podcast. The 5 things you need to hear in under 5 minutes. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Inside Africa. See a continent in transformation as trailblazers evolve culture, technology, and industry across Africa and beyond. From street food to fine dining, meet the chefs leading Johannesburg's culinary revolution.
We've elevated what we create to an international standard, which is something the country itself has been waiting for.
Inside Africa on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank.
Oh, there are big explosions taking place in Kiev right now. We need to get our flak jackets on. You can see Evan Gershkovich is in there. Hi, Matthew from CNN. Is that you holding up all right? These troops are Russian airborne forces. They were engaged in a firefight. Please close the skies over Ukraine, begs. There's so many people who are coming to pay their last respects to the Russian opposition leader.
There's always hope.
We've come to this village in southeastern Nepal, which is full of Harawa Charawa people. They're bonded labourers. We have thousands of people. They need us to help them. Are you still optimistic? The best is in front of us. We set ourselves quite a high bar, showing people new what that means. We're always looking for things that I've never really felt before. My name's Mike Robb. This is my job. Our backstory? It's a guy. I was really going to see these things. That's what we call a hell of a Saturday night. You know, I'm Steve Earle.
I really want to be a great captain.
You're a great way to live.
Start over one day at a time, keep moving forward.
This is what we've been looking for. You never know what you're going to find. It might just change your life.
What is that?
Maybe we should go through.
Oh, wow. Maybe you can tell me what's going on?
I don't know. I think that's the entrance to my high school. Tell her I love her. Oh, it feels exactly like it felt that night.
This one's for me. Mom, I miss you. however this plays out, if it ends in me hurting you.
What if I hurt you?
Be more capable of being happy. You just have to choose it.
That's a big, bold, beautiful journey in leadership technology that's rated R. What is power? Is it control? Is it freedom? Or is it something tribal? Maybe the better question is, how much of it can you handle in every GMC Sierra EV?
Welcome back, everyone. I'm John Ball. For the third time, the federal court has denied releasing grand jury documents on the Epstein investigation. Judge ruling the Department of Justice with grand jury failed to overcome long-standing precedent to keep their records sealed. Noted grand jury transcripts pale in comparison to 100,000 pages of material currently in DOJ possession. President Trump was under great pressure to honor a campaign promise for greater transparency in the investigation into the sex trafficker and pedophile. Texas, another step closer to changing its voter maps to help Republicans pick up as many as 5 congressional seats in next year's midterm elections. The Texas House easily passed the redistricting bill on Wednesday with a vote of 88 to 52. This comes just days after Democratic lawmakers ended their 2-week standoff to keep the bill from advancing. Now goes to the Senate, that's the state Senate, where it's also expected to pass. Now, the Washington, where prominent members of the Trump administration were publicly heckled and booed on Wednesday. That greeting was for the Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller as they met with National Guard members. Vance lashed out at them, calling them crazy and communists. Miller referred to the hecklers as elderly white hippies, saying without evidence that they're not part of the city. This comes as 6 Republican-led states deploy National Guard troops to the U.S. Capitol, and CNN's Brian Todd has details.
While Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth visited National Guard units deployed to D.C.
You guys must rest all day. We give you a hammer. Not a fair parade, but we're grateful for everything you guys do.
And shared lunch at a local Shake Shack.
You can actually bring law and order to communities. You just gotta have the police power to do it.
Around the same time, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser was holding a news conference.
My plan is the representation to navigate us out of this emergency, the president's emergency.
Bowser also addressing the Justice Department investigation into whether the D.C. Police Department manipulated data to make crime numbers appear low.
We know that crime has gone down in our city, and it has gone down precipitously over the last years because of a lot of hard work. We know that those facts don't report to what some people are saying. But those are the facts.
While the mayor has criticized President Trump's takeover of the D.C. police, she and D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith met with White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller and DEA Administrator Terry Cole Tuesday. We pressed the mayor on whether any new agreements were made or if they discussed coordination between agencies, but she only said this.
We discussed shared priorities.
Meanwhile, some in D.C. have taken to the streets in protest, with roughly 8 in 10 residents opposing Trump's federal takeover, a new Washington Post Char school poll finds, with protesters even at times drowning out Vance's remarks on Wednesday.
I think you hear these guys outside here screaming at us. Of course, these are a bunch of crazy protesters.
And while President Trump has claimed D.C. restaurants are booming.
And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time.
We found that restaurants are feeling impacts from Trump's federal surge. Open Table tracks reservation data for the city and says that while the annual summer restaurant week is bringing more business this week, dining was down 7% last week from the week before. Some establishments along the 14th Street corridor told us there was a huge drop in weekday business during the law enforcement surge, low even for a typically slow August, with residents there saying the increased police presence is causing new issues.
I don't think that they're actually doing anything productive to make our city a safer place.
The general manager of nearby restaurant Ted's Bulletin told us that while he hasn't noticed a huge change in diners, there have been some positive changes.
I do see less homeless people walking into my business.
During her news conference, Mayor Bowser and Police Chief Pamela Smith were asked about criticism from some members of the public of the fact that some federal law enforcement agents have been seen wearing masks during operations in D.C. during this surge. Chief Smith said she hasn't received any guidance on why these law enforcement agents are wearing masks. And then the mayor jumped in and said emphatically that she does not believe that in this urban environment there's any reason for a law enforcement agent to wear a mask. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
A long-standing requirement for immigrants to have good moral character to become U.S. citizens is being expanded by the federal government. Now those applying for citizenship must affirmatively establish that they're worthy of naturalization. For example, by paying overdue taxes in full, rather than using a payment plan as in the past. Critics say all of this just adds a new burden to the overall process. Despite all the AI hype, talk of a brave new world, the future is now, it seems corporate investment in AI is yet to pay off, with one survey finding no ROI or return on investment for 95% of companies. Tech CEO Sam Altman believes we're in an AI bubble. The head of OpenAI told reporters he believes investors are overly positive about AI development. He said when bubbles happen, smart people get overexcited about a kernel of truth. And we are in a phase where investors as a whole are overexcited about AI, he asked. His answer is yes. Well, no, CNN's Clayton.
I mean, really stark results from this study, especially because we keep hearing, including from leaders of this industry, how every enterprise needs to have an AI strategy, needs to be adopting this technology. And yet, according to this study, only 5% of the companies that have rolled out AI pilot programs are actually seeing meaningful increases to their revenue. And certainly I do think that Sam Altman might have a point, given that we've seen so many AI startups raking in these huge valuations, often with only 2 or 3 people, a handful of people running the companies. Before they even make a profit, they are raking in these huge valuations. It's likely that not all of those will succeed. But I also think it's worth noting in terms of this enterprise adoption, this study finds that often the problem is not the quality of the AI model, but rather that companies don't yet really understand how to implement this new technology, how to update their processes to really make the most of AI. This is sort of a reality check moment where we've heard a lot from Silicon Valley about how AI is growing exponentially, advancing exponentially, and yet I think what you're starting to see from this study and from what companies are saying about their use of these systems is that this adoption and the development of AI is not actually going to be that linear. Something that I long have just sort of personally thought watching this space is that we're going to see a lot of companies looking to outsource some of their work to AI, laying off workers, only to realize that computers can't necessarily do the job in the way that humans do, and maybe having to bring some of those folks back. So I won't be surprised if we do see a bit of a boomerang here as companies try to figure out what to do with this technology.
And joining me now is Mike Isaac, technology correspondent for the New York Times. It's been a while, it's good to see you. Hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. Now, from tubes to real estate, the rules of economics do not change. When the price of something is driven by speculative investment and it goes way beyond its intrinsic value and cost, eventually the bubble will burst. Is there any reason why the AI tech companies and those companies benefiting from the AI boom will be any different?
I mean, it's a great question. It's an open question right now. If you come out here and ask any Silicon Valley CEO, all of them are basically convinced that this is the next era of the internet, and once we get to building enough data centers and making powerful enough AI models, then the money will start flowing in. But I think it's also a pretty good marketing line and a way for them to continue to spend enormous amounts of money without really getting punished quite yet by Wall Street. Although the past 10 or so, they're just starting to feel a little bit more heat as Wall Street is getting more patient.
Yeah, I guess that pricing to earning ratio just doesn't ever really go away at the end of the day. Microsoft's stock price is one of the big winners from this AI frenzy, with the company forecasting $30 billion in capital spending on AI investment, record sales in the Azure cloud storage business. And this surge in the share price means Microsoft is now valued at $4 trillion, increasing in value by $1 trillion in a year and a half. And it's barely done that way when selling shovels during a gold rush, and they're not the only ones.
No, you're exactly right. And I think there's a few companies that I think are really at risk, and those are the OpenAIs of the world that are
And you thought